Hi guys, welcome back to my Create MERN Stack tutorial series. In this tutorial, we are going to add reset password functionality in our backend RESTful API. So before we jump into the code, let me show you how it's going to look like at the end of the tutorial. So we are going to create this to route endpoint in our user router, like so here. And what happens is that when we client, let's say client has a login information. If client sends the login information and the password is correct, client will receive the login successful message. Let's say client forgot the password and you try to send it, it will say invalid password. So we need to reset that password. So to do that, we will create the to endpoint as I showed you before, and the client will have to send the email. When client sends the email, client will get this message, and if the actual email is exist in our database for the client will receive email. So the email will, let me open here, client will receive such email, password reset pin here, and we will use this password reset pin to reset the password. So we have another endpoint. The URL endpoint is same, but the verb is different. So we have post and patch. So I incidentally click send it, so we will have a new pin coming. And if we go to our email, the client email, now we can use that fresh pin to reset our password. So to reset the password, client has to send their email, the pin we recently sent to them, and the new password, let's say 123. And now if you send the request, it will say your password has been updated, and the client will also receive the email notification, which will say look like this: your new password has been updated. Now we can confirm that by going to login here. Let me copy this one. So if you try to log in with the old password here, you cannot log in. The old password was password only. It says invalid password. And if you put the new reset password, send it, there you go, login successful. So we are going to create whole thing, and on the top of that we are also going to create the server side form validation, and we will use as a middleware, like you can see here and here. Hey, if you are new here, my name is Prem from Dented Code. I create tutorial related to full stack web development. If you are interested in it, please subscribe the channel, and if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you do that, it will help me to grow my channel. Thank you for doing that, and let's jump into the computer. Okay, let's start with our readme file first. So as for our readme file, so this is the thing we need to do in our to-do list. Okay, so we need two route endpoint. Initially I thought we're going to create two separate endpoint, but I think let's put same endpoint, but we're going to have two different method to call that endpoint. So since the one of them will be just to replace the password in the database, we can call as a patch. So let's save that. So you'll understand later if you don't know what patch means. So we got going to create this endpoint, and that's actually two different endpoint because it has a different above. One will verify the user email address and will create the unique token and send email to the client, and the another one will verify the recently created new pin and the email address, and then based on that we will update the password. Since we are going to replace only the password portion of the whole document, so we can call it as a patch. Okay, let's create that first. So let's go to user.router file, and here we're going to create a new router. So that's router.post method, and inside our endpoint is the reset password, and we will have a request and response coming with the request, and then this is the arrow function. Yeah, we're going to grab the email first from our request.body, and let's simply say restart session, response back the email to the client for now, just to test, make sure it works. And let's create this endpoint in the REST client. So go to REST client, and here I'm gonna create a new endpoint. So I'm gonna say password reset endpoints, and here I'm gonna copy the login one because it's gonna be the almost the same. So just copy that, and here we have a post and a user router endpoint, and we need to provide our new endpoint, which is reset password. So let's put that there instead of login, and our content type is the application JSON, and we need to send email only, not the password. So now make a call, and there you go. Now we got the email. That means our endpoint has received the email address. So what we're gonna now do is, now based on the email address, we are going to create the pin. Actually, you know what, let me write the process what we're going to do. So this is what we're going to do. This is a pretty long list, guys. Don't get afraid of it because it's going to be pretty easy once you know what we are doing or what we're going to do. So we gonna have like a kind of 3 steps to complete our password reset functionality. So in the first portion of that function, we're going to grab the email address which we did from client, and we're going to check if the email address is valid or not. If the email address is valid, we are going to create the 6-digit unique PIN, and then we'll save that into database and then email that PIN to client. And after that, we are going to create the paths router API, not the post one. We are going to create another one with the paths, and where we will receive that PIN, email address, and new password. And again, we have to validate the PIN, encrypt the new password, update the database, and send the notification to the client. And once we're done, that's basically all done with the password reset. But I also like to add new form validation functionality. So I'll show you this one why we need it later in the video. So make sure you stay until the last and you follow along if you can. Okay, let's continue that. So the one part is done. Now let's make sure the user is existing in the database. So if you go to our user.model, we have a function called get user by ID. So here, if we pass email address, it will return the user object if the user is associated with the given email. So let's call this function in our user.router. Let's import in our function. Let me close that first. User.model. So we already have this one here basically. So I'm going to call here. So let's say if we have email address and user equals to, let's get the user. So we need to await, call that function, and pass the email address. So since we are using await, make sure the function is async. And now we have the user. Now send the user. So if we send the user here, let's make a call to our endpoint again and send it. There you go. This is the user which is in our database here. So we got the user. So that means email is valid. If we send the invalid email, let's say, we're going to get null because the user doesn't exist in our database. So okay, we have the valid email address. So that means we can go ahead. So this one is valid. That means here we say if not user or not user underscore ID dot underscore ID. That means if there is no user exists, that means you know what, I'm gonna write a message here, say status error message. We don't want to tell the client that whether email exists or not. That is for a bit of security reason. So always say that if the password reset PIN will be sent shortly. You can write more information to the client if you like. That's for your use case. Let's send that. So that means if we have a user, let's do an user ID. That means user is exists. Now we can create the unique PIN here and then return the function from here so that we don't execute this line. So if we don't have the user, then we will have this line will be executed and this message will be responsive back to the client. Let's create new PIN. So since we are going to need to persist that 6-digit PIN, we are going to store in our database, but I want to create new collection or table for this password reset PIN. So let's go ahead and I'm going to copy, let's say user, we have user model, right? Let's go to user model. I'm going to copy this file and folder basically. So I'm copying whole user folder. I'm going to rename this one to reset PIN maybe, or reset PIN. So this is reset PIN model, and inside there make sure you rename both of the file and capital R. I'm going to do same thing for the user schema as well. So that means we have a reset PIN model and reset PIN schema. So schema is like you define what attribute you want to put in your database or column you want to put in the database. So we need to use Mongoose. We need the schema. So instead of use schema, I'm gonna write down reset PIN schema, and in our reset PIN schema we will going to store email address and the 6-digit PIN. So we don't need any of this one. I'm gonna leave phone number and change to PIN. So I'm gonna say max length 6 and min length 6 as well. So I'm going to have like 6-digit pin, and we don't need anything else, so simply you can delete them all. Okay, we don't need this. So we're going to say pin and email address, save that, and make sure you use this function name new schema, update here, and you can also update this name and save that. So now we need to call this schema in our module. Go here and call that model here and say make sure the path is updated as well, so which is the pin reset pin.schema. And here we're going to need insert. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna delete everything first because we're not sure what we're gonna need it. So I'm gonna say set password reset pin. So here we will have an email address coming, and let's create a random 6-digit here, 6-digit here, and then we will save this email and this 6-digit to our new schema here. We can make object here, the const reset obj, and here what we have is the email that we're getting from as a parameter, and the pin that we are going to create here. Now I'm gonna say we haven't created this one yet, but I just pass now rand pin or random pin, and we are going to, for example, if I do const rand pin, let's give any random 6-digit, and now let's call this object in our reset pin schema, and then pass that and save the file, and make sure we export this function down here and save that. And now we can import this function in our user router here. So let's say set pin equals to await, and call that function and pass the email, and let me copy that. And if everything goes okay, we can simply do res.station and resend that pin to see if it works all fine. So just make sure you return it, save the file, and let's go call our client and call for the request. Let's see what happens. Okay, error, that's normal. Set password pin is not defined. Let's see if we call it properly or not. So that's in our router 114. This is not, I think we haven't imported that. Let's import that. Const set password reset pin require the file path to our model reset pin, and then reset pin model, and save that. Okay, and let's go to the function. Okay, let's call it again. Okay, let's see what's the error here. It says, oh, okay, cannot override user model. Okay, we need to provide this one is like a, I think we forgot to give the table name in our module schema here. See, we created pin reset pin schema, but we left the table name user, so we need to change that table name to reset pin, maybe reset underscore pin, and then save the file, and let's make a call again. Okay, that means there is no error. So we got the object with the ID, email, and pin. Let's check in our database. We don't have that table yet, but when I refresh this, there you go, we have the data here. So this is exactly the same as the one we received here. So we are able to store in our database the pin, but we need to create this pin randomly. So make sure the client or whoever want to misuse our router endpoint cannot guess the pin. So instead of providing in our user module, pin reset module here, instead of giving this static random pin, what we're going to do is that we're going to call a function that creates the pin randomly. So let's go to our utility folder, and I'm going to create a file called randomgenerator.js. So say const random pin, because it's a pin number, maybe better pin number, and I'm going to need the length. I'll ask whoever calling this function to say, hey, how long the pin do you want to create, and it's again the arrow function. So now we're going to create the pin equals to, make sure you, even though we are creating pin, make sure you define this one as a string first. Yeah, here we're going to do the loop through the function. So let's do the for loop. Here I'm gonna pass. Okay, so here we starting 0, and then we want to run up to where the length is coming here. whereas the length is less than length time. If we want 6 digit, we need to run 6 times. So since we're counting from 0, so the count must go all the way up to below the number of length, which is 6 in our case. And here what I'm gonna do is we are gonna call a function called math.random, which creates the random number. So math.random, and if we multiply by 10, we will get number between 0 to 9.99999. and if we wrap this one, if we do math.floor, it will round up that number to the floor, which means like if you have, let's say 5.9, it will give 5 only. So, and now we are going to concatenate any value it creates here to the pin. If we don't put this one and provide 0, it will do the addition operation. So we have to put as a string so that it will just put the value one after another. So to do that, we can simply do now pin plus equals to the math floor math plus random. So this way we will get any number from 0 to 9 randomly. And now once we finish this one, we can return this and save the file, and here at the bottom export the module.exports, not default, exports equals to the function name, and save the file. And let's call this function and pass the parameter from our in reset model here. So I'm gonna wait here and pass the, we're going to need, let's define, you can change this value anything you like. I'm gonna do 6 in my case here. Make sure you write down async and save it, and let's go and try if we can see if it works. Okay, we got an error saying random pin is not defined. Again, we forgot to import. Make sure we import here. Okay, so this is from to const set password reset pin required from our utility folder. Go to the utils folder, and here we have the file name called random function, and save that. So we should not set password reset pin, it should be the random pin number, which is this one here. Okay, let's save this file. Okay, the error is gone. Now let's make a call and then test it again. Okay, oops, make sure we provide this one let. Sorry about that, because const means cannot change the value. So provide the let and try one more time. There you go, now it works. Now see, the pin is completely new. So every time, okay, let's go to database first. If I refresh the database, we have a 2 value here with different pin, and every time I send request, we will have a new pin here. Okay, let me try showing that. So there you go, 993 and 412. So let's go to our database and see. If we refresh the database now, we have a few more entries with different number. So it seems like when you have a 0 at the front, it tends to avoid that number and only make 5. You can see here the last one, 47412. Okay guys, I went and did few more times, play around with the data, so like 13 times, to see why the we only have 5 digit recorded here before. And then I realized that if this happens in your case ever in the other use case as well. Let's go to the schema first. If you save data type as a number, it will remove the 0 at the front, because basically in the math there is no value putting 0 in at the front of the number. So that kind of principle follows by the database as well, I guess. And yeah, if you save as a number, it will remove the 0 and only stores the number. So to fix that case, if we probably want to change this one to string. So when I change to string, now it stores the 0 at the front as well, so which is we need. Otherwise we will only have 5 digit, which will not be valid in the future. So change this to string data type, and we still need the max length and min length 6. So now we have a 0 also stored in our database that makes like 6 digit. Okay guys, so that's done. Now you can see we have like every time I did, we have all the unique number stored in our database along with the email address. Okay, with that done, So let's go to our user router again and see what is the next. So we did save the pin and email address in our database. Now the emailing part. Okay, emailing part is little bit longer. We should have like it's one tutorial, but since I don't want to make multiple tutorial for one functionality, so I'm gonna put this one in the same tutorial. So what I'm gonna do rather here, I'm just gonna commit the changes we made here, so that in the future when you want to reference the code, you can go to the commit and then check the code. Okay, so I'm gonna just quickly add that to our stage. Yeah, I might have blocked the whole line here. That's guys. So what I have written here is that as a message in our commit, I said password reset request endpoint created, random pin created and stored in the new collection. So okay, this is the commit. You can check if you want to compare the code or reference to the code. In the email parts, let's work on it. So we are going to use external library for the email. We're going to grab this library called NodeMailer. This is one of the best packages to send email through the Node application. So we are going to use this package. So I'm gonna just follow the instruction and show you how to use it as well. We need to stop our application and then install the NodeMailer. And while it's installing, let's go back to the website and see the documentation. So if you scroll down to the page, you can see this big file here. So simply all we need is this code. So I'm gonna show you everything what we need. So okay, I'll leave this open side by side and let's do coding on the side as well. So we don't need this. Let's close that. And yeah, so I'm gonna create a helper function. So let's create mail helper or email helper. So our package is installed. Now we can run the application again. First we need to import the NodeMailer in the top of the file, and after that here, so we're going to create a function called const email processor, and we're gonna get some parameter. We get back to that later. We will leave this one email processor. I'll just leave it first, so I'll show you in a second why we need that. And here I'm gonna say another function called send, simply like a send email. So this function will have a job to just send the email to the client. So you see this transporter. Now we need to create the transporter first. So let's copy this whole thing above the send. Yeah, let's create the transporter. So we are creating transporter, which is basically we accessing the NodeMailer module, creating transporter, and here we need to provide all this configuration file. So if you are using any mail client like GoDaddy or any other hosting provider, you can get the host, port, and then the authentication here, and then save authentication detail here, and then save this file. But in our case, what we're going to do is this one. The NodeMailer team has created something called Ethereal. So this one give us the fake configuration data here, something like this. So this is basically very useful to test it. So go to this ethereal.email, and then here simply do create account. So you don't have to do anything. It will automatically create the account, your name, username, and password. So and then the SMTP server detail. So this is the information we need. So we can simply copy this one, and this is exactly similar as this information here. So copy this one, and let's go to our application here. So I'll just put here. So see this one, SMTP port, leave the secure first, and then the auth as a user and password. So this is what we need. So let's delete that. So guys, I want to remind you one more thing here. If you are using your valid configuration file, please don't put it here. Make sure you go to the N file, and here provide all the variable here, and then provide the value here with from the environment variable. So never ever put the real value here. Okay guys, since this is the free email and it will not last here, so it's okay for me to use here. Okay, so our transport is created. Now let's go back in the documentation of NodeMailer, and now we can call this send mail with the define object transporter. So call this one all here, copy this one, and now put this one inside our send mail send function that we created, and save that file first. And let me explain you how it works here. So we already created the transporter. So what transporter does is to send the email. So in here we have to provide few information, like from where the email is sending to. That means from the server, from the company like us, and then sending to whom, that's the client, and then subject, text, and information. So all this info, what we can do, we can strip this out from here. I'm just gonna take whole object out, and when you go to email processor, remember we created before, go inside here and create a new variable, say const email info, let's say, or just info, and create as a object here. And now we have email from where, so our email, so we have to send from our email, right? Go back to the ethereal our email person here, and we use our email address here, which is, we put there, let's say CRM company, that's us, so that's our email address. And to where do you want to send? So we can simply receive client email here. When we call the function, we can pass this email and provide this email inside here, send to this. So this is the receiver. And message, we can say reset pin. And then in the text message, so the HTML, some email client, they don't accept the HTML version of the message. So in that case, we need to make sure that we provide text version as well, so that they can see the message. So here we can also pass the other data. Let's say, for example, pin, for example. And here we can simply say, here is your password reset pin, and then just put that, concatenate that pin, and say maybe this pin will expire in 1 day, for example. That's in your use case, you can put whatever you want. In our case, we will check if the pin is valid for 1 day only. And then in HTML case, okay, what we're gonna do here in the paragraph HTML, so let's change this one to the template literal, so that we can do it multiple line. So go down there, and maybe pin number, let's do the bold again, like this one. This is saying, this is highlighting bold. So here now we can pass the pin, make sure we pass the pin as a variable, and here is your pin, and then again this will expire in 1 day. Now you'll see the difference, and save this file. And now we call, after this we call this function called send, and we will pass the info, send the info. And what else we need here? We don't need anything else, we just need info, just pass info here, and we can respond back what happens, right? Go to the send again, and here let's run the try catch block. So try catch, if error happens, we will actually, let's do return your promises. We have a resolve reject error function, and put try catch block inside that promises. And here, if something goes wrong, we can always do console log to see what happened, so that we can debug it. And the rest of the process will go inside here, inside our try block, and save the file. So what happened here, if we get the info.message ID, that means email has been sent successfully. Other than that, we have a problem. Okay, so simply now we can leave this console message to see for us, and we can also do resolve here at the bottom. I can just resolve the info here. Okay, I'm gonna rename this one to result, otherwise we're going to collide with this info here. So result is the result of sending email, so resolve this result. And since we update this one, now we have to change this and this. Okay, let's export this, not this email processor, processor, and then we need the email and pin. So go down here, simply module.exports the email processor, not as a array, as a object. And now we can call this function in our user router, where we have reset password URL endpoint. Here, since we have the pin set is done, let's call that function here. So we haven't imported this function yet, guys. Make sure we import. Okay, const I'm gonna say the result equals to wait, call this function, and we have to pass, remember what we waiting here, email and pin. We need to pass these two things. we have email already here, and the pin also has in the set.pin. This one has the pin is in the set.pin .pin, because when we store the pin in the database, it will return the object, if you remember earlier, and the pin is the property of the set pin. So we'll see in a second. And the result, so here we can again check if this one, we can check here again. Let me show you. Go to the email helper again, and here see I said there will be a message ID if the email is sent properly. So that means if email is sent properly, email ID is, now we can say I'm just gonna copy this one and send as object. So now status is success, and then say the same thing. If not, here we can say something like this one. If there is something, that means here the user have an email pin is created. If something else goes wrong, we can say unable to send the email, please try again later. Okay, let's say this just in case something goes wrong, and then we can have message.id. Now let's save the file and see everything is all right. Did we import this? No. Okay, let's import that again. Email processor is in the email helper, so we can do that here. Const email processor require from path to helper slash email helper. Oops, what did happen? Email helper, and save the file and try to run. Before we run here, I want to say, okay, we have an error. Let's check that first. Okay, again, we need to provide the function as async in our mail helper. Here, make sure you put async. It's very easy to get mixed up and forget to do that, guys. It's normal. Okay, let's go to our I don't need this file. Don't save. Don't need readme now. Okay, now let's go and okay, I wanted to show you this first. Let's go to our ethereal email, and here these are the configuration data. You also have the message here. So here you can see the email. So what it's saying is that this is the where the email is coming from and to where the email is going to. So, and here this is the HTML part, and it is also let you see what the plain text of email also coming here. So I mean, if any email client that doesn't have a HTML support, then they'll receive this form of the email that you can see and test here. So in the message, we only have one email for now. Let's go to our application again and then try to call the reset password request, and we have an error again. Message ID of undefined. Let's go to our router.js, line number 118, user router, line 118. So I'm gonna just, for the safety net, I'm gonna put one more. If there is a result, and we'll go the result.message. This will prevent this error here. Actually, message is sent here. So what happens is that first it just throw the error, and then email processing happen later on. So I can see message sent here and URL. That means email is sent. So let's go to our again the mail, and if you refresh the page, now we should receive one more email. There you go, to this email. So if we go here, see this is the password reset pin, which was the maybe I can, let me show you here. Email helper, go to email helper, and here you see the subject is password pin. This is the subject. Just quickly have a look what the information we have here. This is what we're going to see in our mail here. Let's open the mail. So this is our email, CRM company. So this is supposed to be delivered to this email, but since this is just not the real email that deliver to the email delivery, it will only capture the email and display you what it looks like when it delivers to the proper email when you use your email service, like your email SMTP. So this is the company information we provided from, and this is the client email, and this is the time and the message ID. And here you can see HTML format with the bold, yellow, and the pin number, and in plain version you won't see that. So as you can see, we have the new pin coming 218630. So that should be in our database as well. Now let's refresh and go all the way at the bottom, and here 218630. There you go, guys. Now you have successfully created the pin and send the email to your client. again, I'll just want to remind you, I can't stress enough how important it is for you not to provide this data, this configuration data, if you have your real email SMTP data, not to provide here. Make sure always provide, put in your env file and use as a environment variable here. Okay, all right, this part is done. Now what I'm gonna do, I'll just again commit this change as well. So I'm gonna do git, I'm gonna do quickly here. So what I'm gonna put as a message is that I'm gonna say git commit -m password reset pin send to client, and I will push this one later altogether. So let's go to our router again, user router. So our process, this is done, email pin is done. There you go guys, part A is done. So I'm just gonna move that and save that file. Okay, so now let's guys, if you have been following along, then maybe it's a good time for you to go grab your quick drink or coffee, because it's gonna be pretty long. So okay, now hope you are fresh and ready again. So now we're going to work on the update password in our database. So we have few steps to go through. So first, let's copy this and go one step down, because now we are going to create here new router endpoint. So we need exactly same router endpoint as the post for reset password. If you see readme file here, this one actually, I can say this one is done now. So we're going to do this. So but we need the path verb. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this line and go at the bottom here and say router.path reset password, and then again async request and response. Make sure we close that brackets, and here we have to receive three things. So in the, let's create this one and then make sure it just works first. I'm gonna simply say rest.json, whatever comes in request.body we response. Save that file, and let's go to our client side. Let's copy this one, and here now password, let's say I'm gonna say update new password endpoint. So here all we need to change is, we only need three things. We need the email address again, yes, and we need the pin, and we need the new password. So the pin must be, okay, let's go to our database. So pin must be the fresh pin that actually no need to go to database, we have email, right? Go to our email, let's grab this pin. So now client has to send this pin, because this pin is the pin will identify if the client request is valid or not. We need new password here. So let's say password is password 1. Let's put password 1 as a password, right? This is the best password. Make sure we put comma. Okay, let's send this object to our URL endpoint, and make sure you change this one to path. Save it and then send it. See, whatever we send is written back from our API endpoint. So that means we have email pin and new password. So you can simply destructure and get that value here. Email pin and password from request.body. Receive email pin and password. This part is done. So we need to validate if the pin is exist or not. So if you remember in our reset pin schema, we have a pin and email saved as a pair. So what we can do, we can simply search if the combination of this pin and the email address is exist in database or not. If it does, then it will return this data. If not, it will return null. So let's do that. So let's go to pin model, and here let's create a new function called get pin. So let's do const get pin by email and pin. So we will have email, okay, email and pin, and create the arrow function, and we can do query on our schema here. So let's run in the try catch block, just in case if we run to the problem. So we can always do console.log for the error, and we can also return the promise here. So simply do return new promise with the either resolve or reject arrow function, this one as well. And let's put this try catch block inside that, and in try let's call our schema, and we do the query like find one, and based on the email and pin. And we also have the function, anonymous function, that returns either error or data. So now what we can do, we can run the arrow function, check if we have error, then simply we can resolve the error. I'm gonna the result, I'm gonna say false for now, and do the console log error for us to debug. And if there is no error, then simply we can resolve the data. Otherwise, if system got error, we'll reject the error here. Yeah, let's call this function, let's export this first here, and let's call this reset pin in our user router here. Let's call that. So let's say const get in equals to await, call this function, and then pass email and the pin. So we need to import this one. Let's response that back to the client if there is any data, and make sure we call this function in our file header. So that I'm gonna say const, oh actually we already have the imported file. Let's add the function here, the set pin. Let's do the get pin here as well. I think that's the right, yeah. Let's go to user router again, and here at the bottom we get the pin. If there is pin, we'll get the pin, otherwise we'll get some error. Let's see what happens. Now let's simply go and call this request, and of course there is an error. Let's see first, email is not defined in our REST pin model 27 and 27. Okay, it's a typo, sorry about that. Run again and send the request again. So there you go. Now we send the email pin and new password, and we get the return from the database. That means the pin exists in database. Let's say if we send the invalid pin, send it, we're not gonna get anything. We get null because it's not found in database. So sending correct pin that we receive in our email address, and our email address gets the data from database. So that means if we have _id, that means it's exists in our database. That we can do here. So what we can simply say, if get pin dot _id, that means data is pin is exist. Now we need to check the validation. So we have to do the validation pin here. So for the validation pin, okay, this will say okay, pin is valid, but it does not check when the pin was created and whether it's still valid or not. So if you remember in our message earlier, we said pin will only valid for 1 day. We forgot to provide the create date when we create the pin, so that we can compare the expiry date. So what I'm gonna do is basically go to our reset pin model, not model, the schema, and here I'm gonna say create a new property called added at, and this one going to be the date, and it's required true. And the default, we can provide default value is date.now. This one will provide the current time and date of the time when the data is inserted, when the object is inserted. So if I save that, and let's go to database, and I'm gonna delete all of this one quickly, and I'll get back to you. I just left one data here and then delete all the other ones, just want to show the different. And if you go to our email inbox, we only have 2 emails now. And let's go back to our application, and let's do the request again. Let's do new pin request first. Let me save this file first. And if we do the reset again, pin password reset request endpoint. Okay, so if you do that, now it will unable to process your request at the time. Please try again later. Okay, there is a problem with something else. That's our code bug. We'll fix that. But email has been sent here, guys. If we go to our email here and reload the file, we will get the new pin. So we have said this pin will expire in 1 day. So we said that means we need to do that too. Now if you go to database and refresh the data, now you can see there is added add new date property for this object. So here you don't have that. So that's what we forgot previously. So we added now. So I'm going to delete the other one first. Okay, based on this data, we will check if it is still valid or not. If it is expired, then we cannot update the new password. So let's go back. I wanted to fix this issue first. Let's go to our user endpoint. It's showing, okay, this person is sent instead of this person. Let's just put this one in else block, and it should fix that issue. So actually, we don't need to do any of this, guys, because as I said before, if the user, sometime what happens is that people try to manipulate it by typing, let's say if they found somebody else's email address and then try to see if the email address exists in this company system or not. in that case they might try to save the try to do the password request and see if the email is existing database or not. Just to make them blind, simply in any case we always send this message so that we are in safe place. That means if the email is exist, we send the reset code, reset pin. Other than that, we don't have to say email exist or not or anything whatsoever. So if there is any error, we will have in our log for us to debug. Other than that, we don't need to send any message. So we don't even need that. Okay, we only need one message, so we don't need to check this condition and this condition. Just save that. So we either receive the error message if there is something problem in the system, or we always receive, say, if the email is existing database, the reset pin will be sent to your email. We don't even need to get assigned to that result. Now let's do the request one more time. See, now we get this email address, this information before email actually been processed, because we don't have to define any more message to the client. Okay, now email has been sent with the new pin. With that sorted, let's quickly go to the inbox and check. We will have few messages coming now. There you go. This is the latest one today, and this is the latest pin which is in the database. Refresh that in the database, and let's copy this pin and go back to our application and now do the password reset and provide this pin. See, if the pin is correct, now we have the date. Let's check the date is expired or not. Go to user.router first. Let's get const dv date. Let's say database date equals to the edit date from the get pin. This coming from database, and the let's const expiry date. Let's make 1 day. So the way we can expire date is that we can add the how many days you want to make it on the top of the created date. Let's say if we create the date today, and let's say we have a, let's say expires in 1 day, for example. Yeah, so if we create date today and we add 1 day on the date of today, so it will be tomorrow, and we can compare whether date is expired already or not. So let's do that. To do that, first get the say let expire date. So we need to first get that date, and from date we have to call, because date is a object, right? So we can call set date, and inside set date we can add the date on this date again. So we can call this date and say get date. First get the date and add how many days you want to expire in. The value you can change. You can again this one put in the environment variable if you are likely to frequently change for some testing or some reason, but for our case we just leave here. So that way now we have the date expiry date, so it will add the date number of day on the created date. So, and we can also say const today is the day when client sending the request can be accessed from the date, and just make sure we return the new date as a date object. Now what we can do, we can simply say if today is smaller than the expiry date. Let's do it like this. Simply we can say here rest.json status error, and let's give them the message saying that invalid pin or invalid or expired pin. Just say like that. That's enough. Save the file, and okay, and we return this so that we don't go to the next line for execution. Okay, if it's not valid, we send this message. If it is valid, then now we can simply encrypt the password, because we have a new password coming, right? So let's in here let's encrypt the new password. And if we go to the encrypt helper somewhere here, bcrypt helper, we have a hash password function. If we send the plain password, it will create the hash the password and return back to the encrypted version of the password. So simply say const hash, I'm gonna say await all this function, and then pass the plain password, which is new password, and make sure the function is async and this function is imported in our file. Okay, it's already imported for the another function, so that's great. Now we have the password is ready, encrypted password, so you can say hash. Okay, now when we have a hash password, now we can store in database. So if you go to our user module, let's create a new function here called update password. Now we're going to receive email and new password, new hash, and error function again, and here let's return the promise. We have result and reject error function, and now we're going to do the query over our database. So we're going to do same exactly like this one, find one and update. So we can simply copy this whole thing, and I'm going to test here to reduce the typing time, but we have to do few changes. So instead of finding by ID, we will have the find by email. So guys, if you are not sure what's happening here, when you are making query over the MongoDB database schema, we do find one and update query, and first person you have to provide what is the searching criteria, and then second person is the actually data that you like to update, and the third one is if you want to return the newly updated database after the operation is completed. So yes, we say yes. So in our case, email is the searching condition, and the value that to be updated is here. Simply update this value, password, and we don't need the second parameter, second property to be updated, and we pass the new password and save the file, and now it should update our password and return the newly updated password, and export this function down here so that we can call that function in our user router. So go up here and find the user.model and import the function and make a use of this function. Make sure it's correct, yeah, and go to our function where we wanted to update the password. Okay, we have the hash password, so we call this function here. So say const update, okay, say result, and then await result to get from the update password. And remember, we have to send email so that we can search the user by email and then provide the hashed password and save that. So what happens if this operation succeeds, we will have result dot underscore id, that's the user id. I can say user here because that's what we're going to get. And if we have a user, then we can say now rest.session, and again we can send the message. I'm just going to copy this one. This is success, and the message is your has been updated. Save that and return this. Return all good, all good, all good. If anything goes wrong here at the end, we can simply say unable to update your password, please try again later. Save that, and hash password is should be this one. Make sure you don't have a typo. Okay, we wrote a lot of code without testing. Now moment of truth. So let's go to our email. For example, is a client email, and see what is the latest email here. Let's use that pin and go to our client and request this one and save that and see if we can get the password changed. First, let's send it if it works, or we might be bombarded by the errors here, but let's see. Invalid or expired pin. Well, let's see what happened. Let's go to our user.router, the message coming from here. So because today and the expiry date. So if today is smaller than expiry date, that means true, it's not expired, right? So the logic is wrong here, guys. So to say the pin is expired, we need to make sure that the today is bigger than expiry date. Let's say if the expiry date is yesterday, then the pin is actually expired today. So that's what we are saying here. Before we are doing other way around, so it's not working. Let's save the file and let's go and make a call again. It's saying your password has been updated successfully. Okay, great. If so, then let's see if we can log in with this password. Bring that password and let's go up in our login endpoint, sign in endpoint. There you go. Let's update this password and make a request. There you go. If you see these messages, that means our password is working correct. If you want to test it, you can send the invalid password and send it. It will say invalid password. Great. And just to make sure one more time, we put another password and then send the request. Password has been updated. Let's copy and go back to login. Let's try to log in with the old password, invalid password. Now put the new password. Bingo. There you go. The new password has been updated successfully. There's one thing, if you have realized that we could update the password multiple times using same key from here, which is not right. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to delete this pin from database if password has been updated successfully. So let's do that. Let's go to user router. This one is done. Okay, we can call email to say that password has been updated successfully as well. Let's do that. Then let's do this part. I'm gonna take this out first and go to here. Before we responding back to the client, here we can say send email notification. Go to email helper, saying email helper here, and let's create the another. Actually, you know what we can do? We can basically type all same function and pass one more parameter here called type, maybe. Oops, type, and here I'm gonna do the switch condition. So here pass type if it is a, let's say, request password condition. Okay, in this case then we do all this stuff here. Take this out and do here if we have a new pass request condition, so that we don't have to create another function. And if it is success, let's do another one. In the case of, I'm gonna say source update success, then break. So here we will call update this information and do the exactly same. So what I can do, copy whole thing and put it there, and in the info we just remove this one, we don't need that, and the colon goes here. Okay, in the info everything is same, but in the subject let's say updated password updated, and the message as well can say the new. So I'm just gonna copy the same thing here as well, save that, and then call this function and send the email. We don't have to do anything. So but we have to update this one as a type parameter here. So we are getting too many parameter here, so make sure you don't go over 3 parameter. If you do, then send as a object. So what happened, let me see here. Const info has already been declared. Okay, so in that case what we can do here, we can say let info is empty string, and we just remove this const part, and we just reuse this variable here and save the file. The error should be gone, and now save the file, and let's try to change the password. Actually we need to go back to our user router and go back to the previous function first, where we have the password reset request and email processor. Here as a type, make sure we send what we said we want to send it. Let's go back again. Request new password. Let's write down password. Make sure you pass this third parameter here, otherwise it will not work, and save that, and do the copy the line again here and come back down where we wanted to update here. Just do the same thing here, but in our case what we need is just the email. We don't need the pin. So since we have a variation of number of parameter sending to the same function, it's better we change that as object. So what we're gonna do instead, here we're going to destructure it and then save the file, and we call this as a object as well, because if we are not consistent with the parameter, we're gonna have a lot of problems. So just make an object and pass this one as a type, and this one will be okay, and go back to the other function as well, otherwise it will not work here as well. It will crash the app where we have requested the password reset pin. So here email is okay, set pin is I think it's a pin. We have to wrap up in the object, and for this one we have a type, and save that. Okay, this will do the job. And what I want to do is, okay, email is sent, and also we want to delete the pin from the database. So okay, so that's we have to do in the pin scheme model. So find one and delete. Go to the reset pin model, and here we have to create a function to delete. Just makes the copy of find email, the function. I'll just make copy and modify there. It's more faster to than typing. So I'm gonna say delete pin. So we will have email and pin is a parameter, so we have to use now, instead of find one, we have to call the method called find one and delete. So what happens, it will find the combination of email and pin, and then it will delete. If it is deleted, we will have a deleted information. If not deleted, we'll have error. So what we're gonna do, we don't want to return anything, so we don't need this return person, because we don't need to give any feedback to customer regarding to deleting pin. So we simply delete in the system and let it go there. So I don't need to reject or resolve anything. We can definitely leave the console, so we can just simply delete here and just finish the operation here only. And this one should do the job. And let's call this function, sorry, export this function, and then go to our user router, import that function from the pin model. Yeah, this is what we need to import, and call that function in our, go down to our router where we patching the new password, and here we send the email information and also call this function, and make sure we pass the email and pin and save that. We don't need to receive any information back from here. Okay, make sure we have email and pin to the delete pin function, and we do find one and delete, give email and pin. If error, if data, we don't need to do anything. Okay, we don't need to resolve here, save that, and let's give a try one more time. So before we try, I want to clear our pin here, delete all of them. Okay, and let's go to our email, make sure all the email is red so that we can see, sorry, not source, okay, the message. All right, so let's go and do the pin reset process. Let's see all in action. Let's see how many bugs we're gonna get. Go to the client. First, let's request new password pin. Okay, that message is expected. And now let's check our email address. So now we should receive new message, okay, with the new pin. Okay, pin is undefined. Let's see why. Because when we update as a object, I think we messed it up there. Let's see. In our reset password pin request here, so email processor pin, okay, there is the typo, small pin guys, not big pin, because when we go to email processor, we are expecting small pin. So save that again. So I want to go to our mail helper. Yeah, we have one request new password type. Make sure that is sent in our user router when we're requesting new password in the post method. Yeah, this one has to be that. Save that. And the second one here, when we're updating password, we need to have request new password instead of that update password. Now let's copy that and save. Usually in the production apps, you create the constant variable file, and you define all of this one in that file, and then use that variable here, which is more safer way. So in our case, we're only using like 2 types here, so that's probably overkilling. So just we leave that for now, just letting you know that, okay, that's the best way. So now let's go to our email helper and make sure we have this exactly same as this string in our update password, the second one, this one, and save that. Now do one more last test. Now let's request the pin, and let's check our email. And in our email, okay, we have a password reset pin which is ending with 968, which should be in database as well, 968. Yeah, and let's copy that pin and go to our application and do update the password here with the new pin, and now send the request. Your password has been updated here, so that works fine. And let's go to our email again, so we should receive the notification of that. See, password update, and it's saying that your new password has been updated. Great. And in the database, this one must be deleted now. There you go, guys, all done. Great, it's working perfect now. If you are following along, guys, congrats to you too. Okay, so let's see what else is in the list. Go to the user router, and okay, part B is done completely. So now server side validation. Okay, I'm gonna pause a little bit and then I'll get back to you after drinking water, and then we'll do the middleware validation. Okay guys, that all seems working perfectly. I'm gonna quickly again put in the commit staging so that you guys can have a look. So I'm gonna say okay, so you cannot see what I have written is that password reset and email notification sent to client added, and there you go. All right, that's added as well. And the another thing in our list is the server side validation. Okay, let's get working on that. So to use the server side validation, I want to use a package called Zoe. Let me quickly show you. Here we got 2.5 million downloads. So go to documentation and API. So we are going to use this package. This package is very helpful to use, and it's super easy for us to validate user data. Let me show you why we're going to use this Zoe to do server side validation. So let's go to our application, and if you go to our user router, we are receiving email, pin, and new password to update the password, or even before that we're receiving email to or the object or the wrong information. For example, let's say this one, when you try to send, the application will crash because the application is expecting the email, not the email B, or they forgot to send this value and just send the request. That means that we need to find a way that server does all the validation before we're going further. And this is another way that to avoid the injection as well in our database. So they might send whole MongoDB query as a parameter here, and then that can drop all the table as well, right? So make sure we want to check if the value here is coming for, if we are expecting a string, we have to make sure that's the string coming, or if it is number, make sure that's the number coming, or if it is email, make sure the email is coming in correct form. To do that, we're going to use that the package I just showed you, and let's have a look quickly how they use. So we need to require this one, so let's install this first. I'm going to stop the application and then do npm install Zoe, and while it's installing, let's see how we can use. So simply we have to require it, and okay, and then we have to define. Okay, let me show you this one. While this installing, let's go to the helper function, and let's go helper and create a file called form validation, or the form validation helper.js, and here I'm gonna close this. So let's import this first, we need it. And what we can do, simply first we can define what we need. Okay, for example, in our case, we have to, in the case of our reset password request, where we sending email only to receive the pin, we expecting email only, right? So in our case, I need email. See, I can simply just copy this for now and then go to our email validation, and I'm gonna define this one here. So I'm gonna do a little bit, I'm gonna strip out from the whole one thing. It's just doing everything in one function. So we can simply define this one outside and then pass in here later. Let me show you. So I'm gonna say const email equals to, so Zoe is the one that we import from the package, and it's a string type, right? And this is just chaining. Okay, this is how it works. If you want to change something more, you can do here. You can say maximum length, minimum length, and so on. There's much more you can do. Zoe.dev is the documentation. You can read about it. Okay, so this one saying the string type, and this is email. It has a pre-built function. So minimum domain segment 2. That means we have like at least 2 person separated by dot, and then we are allowing only .com and .net. So like if you say xyz@.com .com or .net, like that. So now what we can do, yeah, I'm gonna say create a new function. It's actually, you know what, this is like a middleware. We can actually make it work as a middleware, because this one we can respond back to client if the data is not coming valid. So instead of helper, I will prefer this one, putting in the middleware. Simply drop and drag into the middleware and change the file name. I'm gonna say middleware here, and nothing changes inside. Now I can simply say function const. I'm gonna create middleware to check our user router for the first one here, reset password requesting, where we requesting the pin. So I'm gonna say reset pass request validation equals to, we're going to receive 3 things: request, response and next, and arrow function again, and here. So next means if everything happens we are happy, we can say next function. That means now we can pass this middleware to the next middleware. So let's export that and do module.exports, and then let's import this one in our user router. So say const required from the file path, the middleware and the form validation middleware, and this one is a middleware now that we can pass to our reset password. So simply, we have already talked about this before in previous tutorials, so hope you guys still remember how it works. So when we call the middleware, it will, after we reaching to this URI endpoint, it will go to this middleware before running anything else. So within this middleware, we will save the file. We will receive request response next, like here. We also receive next here. Since we are not using next here, so we don't have to type that. Save that again, go back here, and now in our request we have email, right? So we can destructure that. We don't need to destructure that, just leave it first. So similarly here, let me do back and forth first. See how we strip the email here, guys? We can exactly do here, but we don't need to at the moment, because now we are going to test the validation. So we have our the validator ready here. So the way we validate our email is we have to create the validation schema. Say const equals to object, because we need to pass the object. So if you have multiple property coming, we can define here, and then we can pass them here as object. So this is our rule. So this is the condition we are going to apply whatever coming in our requested body. So, and now what we can do, const value equals to schema dot, now we simply say validate. So what do we want to validate? The data coming in our request.body. Now the Joey will check extra property that is more than required, it will throw the error, and if you don't have enough property, then it will throw the error as well. So in value we will have if you see here, see schema.validation, this is what we're doing. So instead of passing like this, we are passing request.body, and then schema here, instead of object here, defining within the rule inside the schema, we are just defining this one outside, and we're just passing the object inside. Okay, we are not doing anything much, then making more clearer. And here, if we do schema.validation, we're going to get object of value is the value of the data coming, and if there is any error, it will put in the error property. So here what we can check is if value.error, that means we have an error. So simply we can say rest.json, say status error, and the message is the error. So that should be value.error.message. So this way, so if we got error, now we have the response back to the client saying there is an error. If there is no error, then we can go to next and proceed our request. Save that, and let's run the application again and try to let's see if we have called this middleware here. Okay, yeah. And now let's try to call this router to request the password. So let's go to our client, and let's try to first make an error. So I'm going to send the wrong value or the wrong data. So if I send this, let's make it bigger. See, now we have the message calling error. Okay, let's go back and fix that. ERROR, that's the status that we send back. And the value message has the saying like email is not allowed, because we only allow what is it, email. This is the only allowed. So this is emails not allowed. So if you, let's say that, and then go back here, and if you let's say we say email, let's send the correct email but send the invalid value. If you save it and send it again, it is a email must be valid, because what our validation says that we need two segments with .com or .net. Or if you say let's say fish and then send it, it still say invalid. So if you say .com and save that, and let's make sure this file is saved, and then send again, there you go, everything is working fine. So that's working. Our validation works fine here. Now if you go to check our email, we will probably have received the email as well because it's all working. Seems like I have deleted the email, but I can access with this URL. There you go, I received the new email here. Now if you use this token to reset the password, so we can also apply there. Now I'm going to copy and paste this password. I'm not going to send the request yet, but let's go form validation and create another validation. Let's copy this one down here, and instead of reset password request, now update password validation. So here we are expecting three things. We will have email. Now we can reuse email, and we are receiving email, pin, and hang on, not this one, in our paths. We are expecting email, pin, and new password, right? Let me just copy, make us easier, and go to here up there, and we need to create the constraint for the pin and the new password as well. So I'm gonna say pin. We don't need any of this one now, but we can say max min, and is a 6 character, max 6 character, and new password is a string, and I'm not gonna put anything here for now. You can put like if you go to the website, you also use like this, for example, password. You can put the regress as well. So I will leave this one for you. See what do you want to put like for the password condition. In our case, I'm simply gonna say alphanumeric and 30, and this one I'm just gonna put this value. So for our new password, so what it's saying is that the data type is string and alphanumeric, and minimum 3, maximum 30, and require is yes. Later on, if it is not required value, we can remove require as well. So let's put require to our in as well, since it's gonna be required as well. And now our constraint is defined here, and let's go and provide this to value to variable in our object here, because in our update password validation need these three things. So simply put pin and new password. So that's all you need to do. Everything else is exactly the same. Of course, you need to export this and again import in our user router, which we already have before. Now we add this function as well, and now simply pass as a middleware here and provide comma here, save it, and now we can test it. Let's send the wrong value first. So let's say we don't include the pin and just send like that, and it will say pin is required. And let's say I'm gonna put longer pin here. Let's say one longer than that we are allowed to send. If we send it, pin must be string. Okay, have we said pin is string here? Okay, yeah, we can change this one to number. Save, and we're gonna run into problem here. I'll show you that in a second. If we send it, it should be less than equals to 6. Now it's not saying the pin. Now the before, when we say the min and max for the string, it will count the length of the string, but for the number it's a maximum and minimum value. If you want to avoid that, you can simply put the total value. If it is, let's say, 6 digit, you probably want to put 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then the minimum you probably want to put, this is the minimum value. Now if you send, this one should fix the error, but I want to make another error. Let's say password is forgotten this time. Let's take this one out because I don't want to complete the transaction. So if we send that, now new password is required. Now we have to provide new password as well. Now if you save and send, now everything is working fine. Your password has been updated, and if we go to our email, we should receive that email too. There you go, password has been updated. There you go, guys. As per our plan today, we managed to do everything. So let's save that, and I'm not again removing the console log, guys, for you, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that in our repo so that you guys can see it. I'm gonna push in the Git as well straight away so that you guys have the code when the video is up. There you go, guys. The code is pushed to our Git repo, and the link for the Git repo I'll provide in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the tutorial. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or query, please write in the comment section down below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible, or you can join me in the Discord channel as well, where we can have a further discussion. And if you have any suggestion, please give me a suggestion. In the next tutorial, we are going to work on this RESTful API and try to complete as much as possible. So till then, code every day, be awesome, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.